to count. They squabble amongst themselves for pieces of carrion, while sinister-looking marabou storks eagerly join the action. Some of the vultures are the height of a dog, and their sharp beaks tear away bones with startling speed. The lodge supplies only enough food to be a snack for the vultures, so that the birds still continue in their regular eating habits. So I don't think that these are rescued vultures at all. I think it's more just to assisting them. And we have had this with conservation initiatives because of the vulnerability of the vultures, that there's quite a few places around Africa, and Southern Africa in particular, that have these vulture restaurants. So it seems we've got a date now with the vultures. Every day at 1 o'clock, we've got a chance to see them all coming in for their feeding frenzy. So Lady Macbeth said vulture feeding station. Yep, vulture restaurant, vulture feeding station. Any of those. But yeah, they have been fed here on the spot. And you could see all the vultures circling when we just started. And then straight after that, the guide came out and threw the meat out. And then everybody came in. I'm pretty sure the vultures know what time it is. Feeding time. So there we just get a bit of a better view of the area. Very typical here around Victoria Falls. So Jive Bunny asking, do hyenas try to join in? I wonder. Potentially Jive Bunny, but I think that's probably why they do it at midday, around 1 o'clock, because then there's the least chance of the likes of hyenas being active. But they've probably also picked up on it. But maybe it's because the vultures eat it so quickly that they haven't really had a chance to even know that there's meat around. And we saw there how quickly they ate it. Not much chance for anything else. But if there were hyenas coming in onto the scene, they obviously would chase the vultures off as well.
To freedom is irreversible.
We raise our hands and we say, we will be free!
Great mass of South Africans denied their humanity.
So not many full crops, as they said on the blog, that it's pretty much just a snack for them. Now they need to head off and continue with their normal daily routine. So, Honey Badger was saying that there's places in the UK that do these restaurants for red kites. Yeah, well, that's wonderful, Honey Badger. I think a lot of these scavenging birds of prey really do need a lot of help because they've really taken the brunt of a lot of farming practices. So it's wonderful that we do see this. And just a little bit of info on the vultures as well is that at a carcass, different vulture species will fulfill different roles. And in Africa, the powerful lappet-faced vulture, with its strong hooked bill, is able to tear through tough hides and open up intact carcasses so that it and other vultures can feed on the flesh and the entrails inside. So it's quite important for them to be around. And you can often see at carcasses, if they don't pull in, that they often can't even get into the carcass. So it also performs the final cleanup acts of eating the hides and sinews after the other vultures have consumed the softer bits. And the likes of a bearded vulture specializes in eating bones, which it actually can swallow whole. Or if it's too large, they fly up into the air and drop it and try and do that on rocks and help it to break it up. And most other vultures prefer to feed on the softer tissues, and that will include these white-backed vultures, although they can open up hides to some degree. I've seen them doing it as well. But they'll all rapidly gorge themselves, and they extend their crops. And sometimes they eat so much that they have to wait for some time before they can actually fly off. But if they do suddenly have to fly, for instance, if a hungry hyena turns up, they'll quickly vomit up some of their meal. And a few vulture species have somewhat wider feeding strategies, including catching live prey, as the lappet-faced vulture does, or even feeding on ostrich eggs, which the Egyptian vulture does, using rocks as a tool to crack the shells. The palm nut vulture, or these ones obviously we don't see here, while eating carrion occasionally, actually specializes in eating the oily fruit of raffia and oil palm trees, hence its name. All right, so wonderful start here at the Victoria Falls Safari Lodge, but I think time to change of place as we have so many different locations now. But I think we'll head back down to South Africa, but on the border of Botswana. That's the Madikwe Game Reserve and Africam Tau. Did I say Africam Tau? I'm very sorry. We actually went to East Africa because we've got so many locations now. I'm getting a bit mixed up. But we've gone to Kenya and Old Donyo with a yellow baboon and some Maasai giraffe coming in for a drink. Still just too many clouds for us to be able to see Mount Kilimanjaro there in the background. The peak is up in the clouds there. Almost, but not today. So Janine Masson was actually asking where the Victoria Falls Safari Lodge is in Victoria Falls because she would like to visit. So Janine, it's just outside of Victoria Falls town itself. It's above the falls. Well, but it's a little bit inland from the falls, but very close to town, and it's close to the road that heads towards Namibia. And before the Elephant Hills Resort or Lodge. So if that gives you an idea. As this Maasai giraffe now taking the initiative and getting right in the water for a drink. So, and Kim was saying one of my favorite waterholes. This is a fantastic waterhole here at Old Donyo. It's always full of animals. It's very rare that there isn't anything here. And with the perspective of it as well, looking up at the animals here, it's just wonderful. Especially when the big bull elephants come in, the big tuskers, and a lovely variety of animals too. Lovely bird life. And we've seen big herds of zebra. We've had some eland, the fringe-eared oryx, the yellow baboons, and quite a number of birds of prey too. And this is an excellent waterhole to watch at night as well. Lots of predators. Here's that yellow baboon walking through in the background. Can you hear the red-billed oxpeckers? They normally also take the chance to go down for a drink, and the giraffe come in. Nice close-up view on their spot patterns. So these Maasai giraffe also have the darkest spot patterns of all the giraffe subspecies. The southern giraffe does turn darker as they get older, but you can see these are almost black. So Alana Ronald saying, hi, Safarians, gorgeous giraffe sighting. It is a wonderful sighting, this. Great when we have them coming in. And that they've got their time at the waterhole too. If the elephants come in, they've got to wait for them to finish before they can get a drink. And Shanae from the UK asking, do the giraffes' long eyelashes serve a specific purpose? So yes, they do indeed, Shanae. It's mostly to keep dust and pollen and things like that out of the eye. So it's protection for the eye, as with ours. And anything that comes near to the eye, obviously the eyelash sort of picks it up, and it's an early warning system for the eye itself and for the eyelid to close. But it also, as I say, with the dust and the pollen, because they do like to feed around, mostly the acacias. It's their favorite food. And a lot of them, when they're in flower, they have a lot of pollen. So it does help to sort of limit the amount of pollen that goes into their eyes as well. But I think they must have some of the best eyelashes out there. I think I would also say ostriches have excellent eyelashes. And if you look closely on elephants, they also do too. But these are just wonderful. What's another one with a good eyelash? Secretary birds. They have fantastic eyelashes as well. So Elizabeth Beauchamp was saying, I just adore their fluffy ossicones. They're so beautiful. Yeah. And very unique, being the tallest land mammal, but very anxious, very nervous in their disposition. So Jive Bunny also saying that there's a lodge somewhere in South Africa where giraffe reach in to share breakfast. I'd love to know where that is, Jive Bunny. I think I might have seen a picture on one of the lodges somewhere with people dining and a giraffe's head in over the table. So Nalana was saying that's a great comment and explanation about the function of the eyelashes. Yeah, that's pretty much, I think, every animal's what the function is of the eyelashes. It's mainly just due to protection. of that very valuable resource or body part, being the eyes. You lose your eyes, you lose your sight. It can mean death for a lot of the animals out here. If they can't see where they're going, they're not really going to last long. So, and Beach Bunny was saying, I've never heard a giraffe make a sound. I have heard some few sort of hisses and like grunts, but I still haven't heard what they say when the giraffe at night, in particular, hum. Uh, in communication with each other, and that's to enable them to be able to know where the other individuals are, but very little in the way of sounds. Absolutely. And so much so that you actually sometimes get a fright, especially on foot out in the bush when you're walking and you happen across a giraffe, especially if you're walking quietly, as you should do when you're out in these parts where there's potentially dangerous animals. But you can surprise them and they just as well surprise you. So, in Honey Badger, I was asking, what's the main difference between all of the baboon species, and are cave baboon a real thing? Well, the differences between the baboons that we get here, the yellow baboons, and obviously at most of the rest of the locations, we will see the chacma baboons. They're probably the most common. But the yellow baboons have more slim bodies with long arms and legs, and they obviously have that yellowish brown hair, giving them their name. They resemble the chacma baboon, very similar, but they're a little bit smaller and they have a less elongated muzzle. So that face. And their hairless faces are black, framed with white sideburns. That's quite interesting. Then further north in Kenya, the Masai Mara, you would also get the olive baboon. They're the larger of all the baboon, and they're also more hairy. And then they've got that olive color to them as well. They're very hairy, though. That's what I first noticed when I first saw them. How much hair they had, especially the big males. Now, cave baboon. I'm going to have to look into that. I've never heard of a cave baboon, so I'll have to do some research on the interwebs. And Mikey was asking, how do giraffes sleep? Do they stay standing up? So, Mikey, mostly, especially in the areas where there's a high prevalence of lions, and here there's lots of lions. So, if they lie down, they are very vulnerable because it takes them a long time to stand up, and it's too much time for them to be able to evade a lion that would be rushing in on them. So, mostly they will sleep standing up, and it's in short spurts, just a few minutes at a time, and then they keep moving, and then they'll stand somewhere again and rest up once more. But sometimes they will go down. They sort of don't lie completely down. They go down on their bellies, bending their legs, and then sometimes they rest their head around onto their rump. But we see this mostly in areas where there's, as I say, not a really high prevalence of lions. So that question on the cave baboon, I think it. I don't think that there's an actual species that is a cave baboon in particular, but I just found a little write up on the New Scientist, and they say that a group of Chacma baboons in South Africa's De Hoop Nature Reserve and a group of ring-tailed lemurs in Madagascar as well have also been spotted taking shelter and even sleeping in caves, much as early humans used to do. And for the baboons, it started when the group lost their leader, and the charismatic alpha male from a neighboring territory took over and brought with him a revolutionary idea. The troop moved to the new alpha male's home range near the reserve's Dronkvlei cave. They then began to disappear at night. And they started using that area and using it as an underground sleeping spot. So that was quite interesting. Bravely following their new leader into their underground sleeping spot. So I'm wondering if that's where the cave baboon theory has come from. But I don't see that there is a species called cave baboons. I'm sure that a lot of primates, with their intelligence, would use caves as overnight sleeping spots. They do prefer to go up in the trees, though, and roost, because on the ground they would be vulnerable to attacks by leopards in particular. Now, of course, we must all understand that we do have a lot of locations, but we also try to go where there's the most action. So, if you're wondering why we're not going to anywhere else, it's generally this time of the day. It's probably the period during the day when it's the least activity. When it's very hot, we do have lots of activity normally from the elephants coming in to cool themselves off and quench their thirsts. But always from our part, trying to stay where there's the most interesting sightings. See that lovely big fly swat tail of the giraffe. Everybody looking in different directions, scanning the area, very anxious disposition. And the odd individual moving through in the background as well, in amongst those acacia thickets. So, just scratching around on these cave baboons, and I found something interesting as well. In 1982, a mummified adult baboon, female baboon, was discovered on a ledge in Ludwig Cave in Namibia. And a toe bone was removed for dating in July 1995. Radiocarbon dating of bone collagen, tendon, and skin indicates a postmodern age. Application of the atomic bomb spike calibration curve suggests death in late 1977 and an age at death of around 19 years. Baboons roost in the cave, and the mummified female, along with the mummified juvenile male discovered in 2002, and 3 rotting corpses discovered in 1995, were probably chased by other baboons or by leopards down a 6-meter drop during the rainy season and were unable to climb the steep and very slippery slope to escape. The large number of baboons trapped in the cave in less than 20 years, and mummification of 2 individuals on dry, dusty ledges in the cave may explain why large numbers of baboon skeletons have been discovered in ancient bone breccias in a number of caves throughout southern Africa. Okay, so you see those males just starting to neck there in the background, getting a bit of a fight going. That's being said, I think it's time to change, and let's go to the Greater Kruger Park and Olifants River. Where, surprise, surprise, in the middle of the day, the heat of the day, we have some elephants. And what a beautiful spot this is on the wonderful Olifants River. It's a croc-infested river at that. These individuals seem like enjoying a nice cool-off.
Did you know that the only group of birds that can fly backwards are hummingbirds? We are celebrating World Wildlife Appreciation Day with a tell-all. Send Cedric and Steve questions about any wildlife species of your choosing in this Wildlife Ask Me Anything. Learn amazing new facts and brush up on your knowledge about all things wild. Become an explorer and watch it live on the app. WildEarth, connecting with nature.
So that Wetton girl was saying the lodge where giraffe can share your meal is Giraffe Manor. Yes, and I've also found out that that's in Nairobi, and they say that one of the most fascinating things about Giraffe Manor is its resident herd of Rothschild giraffe, who may visit morning and evening, poking their long necks into the windows in the hope of a treat before retreating to their forest sanctuary. And that is wonderful. The Rothschild species of giraffe was once highly endangered, but Giraffe Manor has long been part of a breeding program which has successfully grown their numbers in the wild. Fantastic. And then Bab's Vacation was saying crocodiles are such apex predators. I wonder if they keep their population under check, or what other factors keep their population under control. Bab's Vacation, I would say that a lot of the control of them is when they're either in the eggs, in the nests, on the banks of, in the likes of the sand banks that we're seeing here, where these elephants are drinking from. They'd try to find a nice secluded spot where they make their nests. But then there's a lot of animals that dig those eggs up, in the likes of water mongoose and other mongoose species, as well as monitor lizards. And then once they sort of hatch and they're small, they can be eaten even by other crocodiles. They can be eaten by catfish. And so they do have a lot of predators, and not, there's quite a high percentage of them that are kept in check until they get up to the older age. But yeah, no, and they definitely are apex predators, and everything's got to be careful for them. Even the elephants, especially with the little babies. And we've seen once here where we had a breeding herd that came down, and they started to drink, and then a crocodile went straight up to them. And there was a tiny little baby, and we were holding our breath for quite some time, thinking that the crocodile would potentially grab the baby. But the elephant herd rallied round, and they sort of moved the little baby because they could see the crocodile, and they sensed the danger, and then moved the baby into a sort of shallower area and also circled it. At which time the crocodile then realized that it didn't really have a chance and moved off. But Bab's Vacation, I must also say that a lot of these waters are literally infested with crocodiles. I wouldn't put my big toe in there, as I wouldn't in the Zambezi. Sometimes we do go, because I go a lot on the houseboats. We go fishing, etc. In the Okavango, as well as the Zambezi, and other areas in South Africa too, the Josini Dam, and we just choose our spots. Sometimes where there's very clear water on a bit of a sandbank, we may get out, but you've got to be very careful because there's lots of crocodiles around. And all you have to do is just drive your boat at night and shine the torch, and their eyes reflect, and you can just see how many there are. So infested. And a lot of people that live on the banks, they've got to be very careful as well. A lot of dogs are even taken coming down to the water. And people are also taken too. They seem to also watch when there's a kind of something that happens every day. So a kind of rhythm. And if kids go and swim in the same spot every single day, the crocodiles work that out. And then that's when some of them do get taken from the villages. And it becomes a bit of a problem. So that's what we try to avoid, is going to the same spot, and also where the water's clear. On the likes of Kariba Dam, we'd normally drive out into the deep waters and just jump off, but get back in the boat very quickly. I'm very aware of crocodiles and quite scared of them too. The old flat dogs. So there's two bull elephants, these. Seems they had a bit of a discussion there. Now they're going their separate ways, or are they? No, might move off together. Bit of a brotherhood. Looks like an impala ram. Maybe also want to go for a drink there. And also going back once again to that question by Babs, vacation. All the apex predators will be limited by the food source and the prey species available to them. So where there's a lot of game, you generally find that there's a lot of crocodiles, but there also need to be a lot of fish and a lot of insects, etc., for the smaller crocodiles to obviously get into adulthood and reach those big sizes. But if you look at the likes of the Mara River, up in the Masai Mara, there's so many crocodiles there, and they get huge. And a lot of this coming down to the migration and the wildebeest and the zebra and the gazelle that drown in the river, and it just piles up with food. There's so much excess that very often they just sit rotting, and that even becomes a problem. So there's not even enough crocodiles to eat all of the animals that have drowned. So really limited to their food source. Obviously in these areas, lots of fish, lots of insects, lots of amphibians, so lots of food for the youngsters. And then as they get older, there's bigger food sources as well. But it will always be limited to the food source, an apex predator, much like it will be with the lions. You'll never have more lions than there are antelope species, for instance. There always needs to be that pyramid, as the species go down, and as you go further down in the chain, there would be more numbers of those species the further down you go. So, and we've spoken about this many times before, with elephants and their social structure. You have the breeding herds, and that's the females with their daughters and their sisters, and, you've got the aunties and all that, and then the youngsters. And they stick together as a group. But then the bulls, they generally sort of get pushed out of the herd once they start becoming boisterous, just after the age of 10, around 12 or 13 or so. That's when they start moving off on their own. And generally, as a young bull, they'll start to follow some older bulls. Sometimes they can move off on their own, but generally they would follow an older bull, and they do form a bit of a bond. And sometimes these little bachelor herds can be bigger than just two, it can be even 4 or 5 of them, and often then moving together. And it's only when they come into must that they'll then leave that group and head and go and looking for the females. But very often finding that you have particular individuals sticking with one another in this kind of little brotherhood bond. And I think off to the left of this bull elephant, I think in that tree there looks to be a red-billed buffalo weaver's nest, that big mass of sticks. And I just saw a bird come out of it, pretty much the size of a red-billed buffalo weaver. Not true weavers, because they don't really build a nice woven structure. It's just all sticks, and they put in all haphazardly. And the likes of the white-browed sparrow weaver, it's quite similar, but they use grass. Also not a true weaver. And the true weavers are the ones that are able to tie a knot, and they build those, very good-looking nests. And very well woven as well. Those are pretty much all of the true weavers. And Rachel was saying, loving the bird calls. Always lovely to listen to all the background noise. It's not really noise, is it? It's almost like an orchestra. And Alana Ronald saying, I love seeing the Ellies flap their ears, keeping themselves cool with their built-in radiator. Alana. Speaking of the bird calls, I always used to say to the students when they first used to arrive to train, to be guides, that, initially we used to start teaching them about the bird calls, and they were always very confused because there's so many, and to pick each one out was very difficult initially, as it is, because it can be quite a lot. So I always used to say that it's kind of like an orchestra. When you first hear an orchestra playing, you don't hear all the individual instruments and you're just hearing the music. But if you start listening closely, you can pick out the drums and the trumpet and the bass and whatever other, the piano and the violin, and you start hearing all those individual parts to the greater sort of song or, music. And it's exactly the same with the birds. The more you listen to them, the more you can pick out all the individual little bird calls, as we would then liken it to the instruments in an orchestra. And what we regularly use as guides as well to tell the mood of a lot of the bigger animals, rhinos, elephants, even lions as well, is to look at their tail. We look at their body language in general, but their tail is a very good indicator of their mood. You can see this big bull, he's just waving that tail backward and forward. There's nothing that indicates that he's in a bad or foul mood. He seems nice and relaxed and happy-go-lucky. If he was in a bad mood or he was surprised or, he's angry or anything, that tail then will go at a right angle and be very stiff. And then you immediately need to be careful because he's definitely not relaxed, that's for sure. And with rhino, they curled him up into it curls almost right back on itself, and that's an indicator as well that it's not in a good mood at all. Lions, of course, just like your domestic house cat, if they start flicking it from side to side, that's a good indication of a bad or foul mood. Righty, now that this elephant's starting to move off, I think we'll do the same, but we'll stay in the Greater Kruger Park, but let's head to King's Camp. Where once again, we've got another lovely view of an elephant, but quite a lot closer and just in a different part of the park. So we've had this camera here for quite some time, but they've changed the angle of it. It's much lower now, and it's a little bit, at water level and closer to the action. So this is wonderful and a lovely change.
Out in the wild, life moves fast. To capture the action, you've got to be in the right spot at the wrong time. Now, incredible animal behavior selected from amazing amateur and professional footage to reveal the secret lives of animals in motion. This is raw nature, caught in the act.
So you can hear those starlings. You can also hear the red-billed oxpeckers, and I think you can also hear a brew in the background. The telephone bird, as I call it. And because the giraffe is so nervous, they literally have to go for drinks in spurts. They're not as nervous when there's more of them as when they're alone, but you can see they're still very cautious, keep looking around. And well, you would do, because if you knew how many lions are around here, I think it'd be the same as the giraffe. And obviously, putting your head down for a drink makes you very vulnerable to being attacked by lions, not being able to see them coming. So obviously why they've survived for so long as a species. Right, but this one getting in for a drink now. A very typical drinking method of the giraffe, bending down like that, as their necks aren't long enough to reach the water without doing that. And then very specialized valves in their neck to limit the amount of blood that flows to the head when they put it down to drink. So I think a lot of that head flicking when they pick their head back up again is got something to do with these valves in the neck and the blood flow to the head. But very typical. As they finish their drink, they sort of straighten their legs, pull their head up, and then flick their head. And then also they get going with their tongue and normally pick their nose with their tongue as well. It's very typical of their drinking routine. So you watch now. When this one finishes drinking, it's going to straighten its legs and flick as it's pulling its head up again. Oh, that one didn't have much of a flick at all. But the nose pick. Loving all the chatter from the birds. And you'll see mainly the oxpeckers get in under the armpits and then very often around the backside as well, under and around the tail, and also under the sort of inside of the back legs too. That's where a lot of the ticks collect. They crawl up the legs and then go for those soft spots underneath, and kind of like the armpits. So Johannes van Kreer or Kruger was asking, is there a real difference between the giraffes found in southern Africa and the ones found in northern Africa? So Johannes, yeah, there is a bit of a difference. Well, there's some that are reasonably different. Obviously, here these are the Maasai giraffe. These are in East Africa, being the biggest. But there's 4 main species of giraffe with subspecies of them. And that's the Maasai giraffe, the northern giraffe, the reticulated giraffe, and the southern giraffe. In southern Africa, we've got the southern giraffe, but then we've got the subspecies being the Angolan or the Damara giraffe, which we get in Namibia. And they're mostly found in Namibia, with just a small little population in the southern parts of Angola. So those quite different to the northern giraffe, obviously. But they're all very much the same shape. They all have a similar spot pattern. I would say just the difference is the geographical location. And so they've evolved slightly differently in terms of the size of their body and slightly different spot patterns as well. So these Maasai giraffe, they're the biggest of the lot, and the smallest of the lot being that Damara giraffe. And I would put that down to mainly where they exist is in the rocky desert of Namibia and southern Angola. So with a smaller body mass, it's easier for them to walk on and in and around the rocks. Because if you put a southern giraffe or a Maasai giraffe in those areas where those Angolan or Damara giraffe are, very easily break their legs or get injuries from that. They wouldn't be able to survive in that areas as well. Oh, there's a little ground squirrel. Let's just walk past too. And also not being able to survive in that water scarce environment. So there's Angola giraffe with a smaller body mass being able to survive in with less water, as opposed to these big guys that will need a lot more water and daily drinking spots. And maybe also because of the bigger trees that they have here, so they can feed on the likes of these acacia tortillas or Vaccilia tortillas, the umbrella thorn. So being a bigger giraffe helps them to actually feed better. And once again, with a smaller giraffe, there's not a lot of big trees out in the desert, and they're feeding more so actually on plants that are much closer to the ground, and very often even grazing too, when the grass species, the Stipagrostis or the Bushman grass comes through. So yeah, just these slight differences and evolved traits accordingly with the different subspecies of the giraffe, but all very similar in their shape and their general body structure. Just small differences.
This is On Safari. Now remember, this is live and interactive, so we'd love to hear from you.
To be having these incredible experiences in this wild underwater forest.
It was just one of those things which I don't think I'll ever see again in my life.
Thanks for joining us on our Sunrise Safari.
So just going back to Johannes van Creer's question on the giraffe. So I'll just go into the differences of all the different subspecies. Now there's the Kordofan giraffe, and that's found along the southern end of Chad in northern Congo, and it's got spots that are typically smaller than the rest of the subspecies of giraffe. The Maasai giraffe, these ones that we're looking at, and found in areas of Kenya and Tanzania. Unusual spots that have jagged edges and are the darkest of the giraffe subspecies. The reticulated giraffe, it's commonly found in northern Kenya and Somalia. Those spots are clearly defined network of brownish orange patches. The Angolan giraffe, found not only in Namibia and southern Angola, there are a few in Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, but they've got large uneven spots that go all the way down their legs and are relatively light in color, especially in comparison to the Maasai giraffe. The Nubian giraffe, and it only has a very small population found in Ethiopia, and its large four-sided spots are chestnut brown and do not continue below the knees. Then the southern giraffe that we see mostly in southern Africa, and its coat has blotchy star-shaped spots that extend all the way down the leg. And then the Rothschild giraffe, and that's found mainly in Uganda and also in Kenya. And it's got large dark brown spots that do not extend down its legs. The Thornycroft's giraffe, and this giraffe can only be found in eastern Zambia. Its coat is covered with large, ragged, leaf-shaped spots that are dark brown in color. And then the Western or Nigerian giraffe, that also a very small population found in Nigeria, and its large tan rectangular spots give it the lightest coloring of all the giraffe subspecies. All right, so lovely spending time with these giraffes, but I think we'll change of place again, and let's head back to Olifants River. But there's some more elephants that have come down for a drink, and they're quite near to a favorite spot of theirs, as well as the baboons. They really like this area in and around these fig trees on the banks of the Olifants. Happily wafting their ear flaps as they graze away. Just heard the African fish eagle there, one of the most iconic of all African bush sounds. Now see, there is a little bird sitting just in between these two elephants. Just trying to see what it is. I think it might be a bee-eater. You often find birds moving close to and near elephants and a lot of the big animals as they bump up the insects. So they use that. And then they go in and catch the insects that have been bumped up. So you would say that that's a symbiotic relationship between any two species, is a symbiosis. But in this particular instance, you would say that it is a mutualistic symbiotic relationship, because not only is the bird getting food from the elephants moving around, but if there's any kind of danger, predator, whatever it might be, as you see that elephant just sliding in down the bank, favorite method of elephants when they go down banks, the birds will obviously fly up and issue alarm calls and alert the animals that they're moving, around and getting their food from, that there's predators nearby, or at least alert them to some kind of danger. So there is a reciprocal from the birds as well. So it's not one-way traffic. Now I'll hazard a guess and say that looks like it might be a white-fronted bee-eater. You see, it's doing the typical hawking behavior that bee-eaters do, flying from a perch, grabbing an insect, and then flying back to the perch and feeding on it. There's a woodland kingfisher calling now. And lots of greenery for these elephants. They're loving it. Lots of food for them. So this looks to be another little bachelor herd, a little brotherhood. You see the different ages of these elephants as well. This one on the right is probably, hasn't left the breeding herd for very long, and is joining these older males, learning from them, and also a bit of company. That youngster seems to only have one tusk. I wonder what's happened to the other one. Normally, if tusks are broken, especially on the bulls, it's generally through fighting with other bulls. And now it looks like might just go for a little snooze. Or is he just going to rub himself there on the bank?
Our march to freedom is irreversible.
We raise our hands and we say, we will be free!
Great mass of South Africans denied their humanity.
So these three enjoying themselves nicely now. Really happy-go-lucky. This youngster is not finished with his swim. There we go. Get in there, son. Call of the grey go-away bird. So Danny asking, are they not going further into the water because the water seems deep? Potentially, Danny, but they can go in the water. They can go right across. They can swim across. I don't think it's particularly deep, even all the way through this river. I'm pretty sure they could pretty much walk the entire length. But they seem to be just enjoying the spot for now. Now, elephants are excellent swimmers, and I've encountered them in lakes, and one in particular in the Jacini Dam, Pongola Poortam, and that was in my boat. And I had two bulls, similar to these guys. They were just feeding and drinking like this, playing on the edge. And I came sort of near to them with the boat, and then they came towards me. So I drove out into the, into deeper waters. And the one individual started porpoising towards me. It was swimming. It was too deep for it to walk. And it was literally swimming like a dolphin. It was amazing. But yeah, I had to hot-foot it out of there because it seemed like it was starting to charge me in the water, swimming. It was crazy. But I did get concerned. And so I had to give gas and move off. So these two now going for deeper waters, but as I suggested, I don't think it's very deep. Yeah, and I think they're going to cross the river completely. Heading for that greener grass on the other side. I've got a little bit deeper there, but not much. And you can see rather shallow now. Alrighty, so I think this elephant's going to go out of view, joining his band of brothers. So I think we'll head off as well. But staying in the Greater Kruger Park, but let's go to Djuma. Well, we've still got elephants, but this is a bit of a change, and it's a breeding herd. Nice little youngsters there, joined with the females. Oh, the blacksmith lapwing just getting out of their way. See, they've also had a bit of a bath, lots of mud in and behind the ears. Oh, there's some more in the brush, in the thickets there. The best time of the day for elephant sightings at the waterholes is around lunchtime and into the early afternoon. Pretty much all round. I heard that grass and I thought there must be an elephant here right near to the camera. Probably going to go around and join the rest of the herd. Looking like it's heading for the dam wall, and then we'll go around and join them. You can hear that low rumble vocalizations from the elephants. Obviously just having a quick check around to see if there's not anything else. There's a couple of young impala rams. Lovely trumpeting there. Yo. This might be a bull coming in to join them. And he crossed that water in a jiffy. No problems there. Well, he definitely let his presence be known, and it seems like the rest of the herd are now pushing off. He's now coming up on that bigger individual. Let's just see what happens here. So cheetahs and other animals are saying that this is such an elephantastic live at the Waterhole. It has been. And thanks for your comment. Thanks for jumping on board with us once again. And those are young impala rams just locking horns, getting in a bit of practice for when they're older, getting into the rutting season. All right, so once again, elephants are moving off, so we'll do the same, and let's go back to old Daniel. Where we've we've got a yellow baboon that's come in for a drink. That's either quite a big belly or it's got a baby. Yes, that's what I actually thought. Hanging on tight. And just like that, it was gone. So slowly heading towards the end of the show. It's been a lovely couple of hours spent at the different waterholes. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I sure have. The animals have been stars. You never know what's going to happen out there. That's what's great about it. Still these Maasai giraffe hanging about, doing a bit of ruminating, coming in for the odd drink. There's lots of food to be had, so I don't really need to go too far. And of course, later, don't go anywhere. There will be the sunset safari. And then, of course, tomorrow morning, the sunrise safari. And we'll be back at it again here from 1 o'clock once more live at the Waterhole. So please do join us as we sit back, relax, and watch the animals come down for a drink and cool off. And of course, go down the different rabbit holes of ecological principles and whatever other research or subjects we can come upon. So that's it from me. Salagahle, bush greetings. Cheers for now.
Well, a very good afternoon to everybody once again. Thanks for joining us on another edition of our On a Safari show and a highlight show. My name is Cedric, and behind the camera with me, you got a panda. And yes, we are coming live from a Djuma Private Game Reserve in the world-renowned Sabi Sands.